You've seen this face. For 100 years, it has stared out from the depths of the past. It's forged from solid gold, decorated with brilliant blue lapis lazuli. It's the image of serene, untouchable power. This is the death mask of King Tutankhamun. I mean, let's be real. This is way more than just a priceless artifact. It's one of the most recognized images on the entire planet. For generations, we've looked at this mask and we've seen the face of a mighty pharaoh from a golden age, buried with just unbelievable riches.
The story we all know is about this incredible discovery, right? A hidden tomb, totally untouched for over 3,000 years, packed to the gills with thousands of golden objects. It's a story that built a legend born from the sheer glint of all that gold.
But what if all that gold was just a distraction? What if the real treasure, the real story, wasn't in the artifacts at all, but locked away inside the king's own body? You see, modern science has now unwrapped the mummy, so to speak, and the story it tells is so much darker, more complicated, and honestly, more human than we ever thought. It's a story of pain, of sickness, and a truly devastating family secret. Okay, so let's try and peel back that golden mask. Who was the real Tutankhamun? Well, before his tomb was discovered, he was almost a ghost, basically a footnote in the history books. He was a minor king who ruled for just about 10 years as a teenager. He got the throne when he was about 9, and he was dead by 19. His one big move was to reverse the chaotic religious revolution his father, Akhenaten, started, and bring back the old gods. And for over 3,000 years, that was it. That's all we knew.
And he would have stayed a footnote, completely lost to history, if it wasn't for the obsessive, years-long search of one man. A man who simply refused to believe that the Valley of the Kings had given up all its secrets. And that belief, well, it would lead to what is probably the single greatest archaeological find of all time.
You know, the story of the discovery itself is pure Hollywood drama. For 5 long, hot, dusty years, the archaeologist Howard Carter, funded by the very rich Lord Carnarvon, found pretty much nothing. By 1922, Carnarvon had had enough. He was ready to quit. He even called Carter back to England to tell him the money was cut off. But Carter, absolutely obsessed and just certain he was close, begged him for one more season. He even offered to pay for it himself. Carnarvon gave in. Carter went back to a little patch of ground he'd ignored before, and on November 4th, his team found a single step, hidden, leading down into the ground. This was it. After clearing a whole staircase and finding a sealed door with Tutankhamun's name on it, Carter sent a telegram to Carnarvon in England telling him to come at once. So on November 26, with Carnarvon right there, Carter made a tiny little hole in a second sealed door. He held up a candle to peek inside. Lord Carnarvon, standing right behind him, anxiously asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter's reply is now legendary. Yes, wonderful things. And what he saw, it was a room just overflowing with golden chariots, gilded couches shaped like mythical beasts, statues, chests, a treasure trove beyond his wildest dreams. The sheer scale of what they'd found was just staggering. Now, the tomb had been robbed a couple of times, way back in antiquity, but the thieves were probably caught. The entrance was resealed and buried, and it stayed hidden for 3,300 years. Inside? 5,398 distinct objects, everything from golden shrines and jewelry to everyday stuff like board games, walking sticks, even his underwear. It was a perfect, sealed snapshot of a pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, the only one we have ever found.
So, as you can imagine, the news of this discovery didn't just quietly rewrite the history books. No, it exploded onto a world that was weary from the First World War, and it created an absolute global sensation.
They called it Tut-mania. The entire world went crazy for King Tut. Carter and Carnarvon became household names overnight. Tourists just flooded into Luxor, crowding around the tomb trying to get a peek. In the West, Egyptian designs were suddenly everywhere, on clothes, jewelry, furniture, you name it. There were hit songs about it, movies about it, but this wasn't just a Western thing. For Egypt, which had just gotten its independence from Britain, the tomb was a powerful symbol of its own ancient, glorious past. That pride, though, got a little complicated when Carnarvon sold exclusive press rights to the Times of London, which basically shut out Egyptian journalists from their own story. And then, the legend of the curse was born. Just a few months after opening the tomb, Lord Carnarvon died. The media went wild, fueling all these stories of a vengeful pharaoh. But the truth? It's a lot less exciting. Let's just look at the facts. First, there was no written curse ever found in the tomb. Not one. Second, Lord Carnarvon, who wasn't in great health to begin with, died from blood poisoning after a mosquito bite got infected. And all the other victims? Well, a 2002 study showed there was absolutely no difference in the lifespans of the people who went in the tomb versus those who didn't. The curse was a total media creation. For decades, the story of King Tut was all about the gold, the discovery, and the curse. The boy pharaoh himself, he was still kind of a mystery, completely overshadowed by his own treasure. But in the 21st century, modern science finally started to unwrap the real truth about the man himself. The real game changer here was what's called a virtual autopsy. Scientists used a CT scanner, like they have in hospitals, to take more than 2,000 images of the mummy. Then they combined all that data with DNA samples from his bones. This let them build a super precise 3D computer model of Tutankhamun's body. They could examine him in incredible detail without ever damaging the mummy. It was like the ultimate cold case investigation.
And the results were, frankly, shocking. The first thing they figured out was his face. That golden mask shows these strong, perfect, symmetrical features. But the scans? They revealed a very different person. He had a pretty significant overbite and a long, elongated skull, which was actually a family trait. The point is, the boy king did not look like the perfect face on his coffin. And his face was just the beginning. The virtual autopsy revealed a whole cascade of physical problems. This was not the body of a powerful young king. He had a club foot that would have made every single step painful. His hips were malformed. The scan showed he had Kohler disease, which is a rare and debilitating bone disorder. And if all that wasn't enough, his DNA had traces of the parasite that causes malaria. And not just any malaria, the deadliest form of it. This new medical picture suddenly solved an old mystery from the tomb. Why was a young pharaoh buried with more than 130 walking canes? They weren't just symbols of power. He physically needed them. A lot of them even show signs of heavy use. So the golden king we see in carvings driving chariots into battle, he was actually disabled and walked with a painful limp. So all of these health problems led scientists to one critical question. Why? Why was this king, the heir to the most powerful throne on earth, so frail and sickly? The answer wasn't in any of the tomb's artifacts. It was written in his very DNA. By comparing DNA from Tut's mummy with other royal mummies from his era, scientists did something no one had ever done before. They built his actual family tree. And the results were an absolute bombshell. They confirmed his father was the pharaoh Akhenaten. But his mother, a mummy known as the Younger Lady, she wasn't just one of Akhenaten's wives. The DNA proved she was also his full biological sister. Tutankhamun was the son of a brother and a sister. Now, while royal incest was practiced in ancient Egypt to keep the bloodline, quote, pure, this direct union had devastating biological consequences. The scientific report concluded that the accumulation of malformations in Tutankhamun, the clubfoot, the bone disease, the fragile health, was the direct result of his parents being so closely related. The Golden Pharaoh wasn't cursed by magic. He was cursed by genetics. So, what does all this mean? This tragic discovery completely reframes King Tut's entire legacy. The golden icon of absolute power was in reality a frail young man who was struggling against a really painful genetic inheritance. So what is his true importance? Well, historically, his short reign was really about damage control, just undoing his father's religious revolution. His real legacy actually comes from his death. His tomb is our only complete roadmap to a pharaoh's burial, a priceless time capsule. And today, his body has become just as important. The study of his remains has pushed the boundaries of what's possible in archaeology. And finally, his greatest legacy is cultural. He is King Tut, the face of ancient Egypt, a global icon whose fame has just completely eclipsed the power he actually had as a living king. Which really leaves us with a final thought. For a century, we have been absolutely mesmerized by the glint of gold. But maybe we were looking at the wrong treasure all along. Perhaps the most valuable thing Tutankhamun left behind wasn't in the chests and shrines, but in his own fragile bones. A story of humanity, of tragedy, and the incredible power of science to reveal the truth.